So I think anything that the county can do to help support housing in our community is very beneficial. I want to be very clear, though, also, it's not necessarily, housing is not a core service of Wasco County. It's indirect support is where they're coming from. And so with this project of Basalt Commons, really what can they do to assist in financing those levers that you speak about? I think what we're really talking about is just how do we develop policy focused on, planning, zoning, so on and so forth.
All right. Welcome to the CCC News podcast. Today, we're continuing on with our interviews with county commissioner candidates for Wasco County. And today, we have the pleasure of bringing on Nichole Biechler. Voters in Wasco County will see a crowded and competitive race in the May 19th primary election. Among them is Nichole Biechler, who is seeking election to position number 1. But there are 4 candidates in your race. You're facing Lisa Gamby, John Grant, and Rob Van Cleve, who was here yesterday. Yeah. And so you bring a background rooted in county government operations and organizational management. Nichole currently serves as a business manager at Norcor in the Dalles, where she oversees financial processes, administrative functions, and internal systems within a multi-county correctional facility. Her role places her at the intersection of budgeting, compliance, and day-to-day operational efficiency in a complex public safety environment. Yeah. And prior to her work at Norcor, Nichole served as Human Resources Director for Wasco County, where she was responsible for workforce management, employee relations, and policy implementation across county departments. In that role, she worked closely with leadership and staff to address hiring, retention, and organizational development, key issues for local governments navigating workforce challenges. With experience spanning corrections, administration, and county-level human resources, Nichole is positioning herself as a candidate focused on internal efficiency, responsible fiscal management, and strengthening the county's workforce. Nichole, thank you so much for coming today. And, that's a short nutshell about your career, but maybe there's some other things I didn't ask you about or add in that you might want to tell folks about.
Sure. Well, first off, thanks for having me this morning. I sincerely appreciate it. I think just to add an addition, and what's really important in general, I think as somebody running for county commissioner, is just that immersion into our community. I'm proud to say that I have helped immensely with the Gorge Soccer. I coach, I'm a sponsor, and also have sat on the WonderWorks Children's Board. And so I'm served on that board for 3 years. And then what else? Gosh.
Concert Association?
Yes, I was. Yeah. So just sat on the board for the Community Concert Association and making sure that, Patty Blagg's a force to be reckoned with. I will say she taught me a lot too, of just, community service and what that means to be a public servant in general. So big shout out to her. And that was a great board to be a part of as well.
Excellent. Yeah. Dancing with the Gorge Stars and all that.
Yeah. Thank you to all those many people who agreed to ever do that. That takes a lot of gumption, a lot of guts for sure. So pretty cool program.
Excellent. All right. Well, we'll just jump right into it and we'll start asking some questions. So housing's a pretty big issue here in Wasco County. Folks do have a lot of trouble finding places to live and that kind of thing. So housing costs, limited supply are repeatedly cited as one of the county's most urgent problems. So would you support the counties using public financing tools such as loans, guarantees, or revolving house funds to accelerate projects like the Basalt Commons, which is a 114 planned unit complex downtown the Dalles?
So I think just to make it really simple, do I support that project? Absolutely. I can just speak from personal experience as well as someone who moved back to this community after college, started raising my family here. Housing was an issue and still is an issue. We're very fortunate that we're actually on family land, but people don't always get that. And so ultimately I would say too that, it's a challenge for us to figure out whether we want want to buy or if we want to rent or what we're going to do. And there's cost barriers, there's financial barriers in place with that. So I think anything that the county can do to help support housing in our community is very beneficial. I want to be very clear, though, also, it's not necessarily, housing is not a core service of Wasco County. It's indirect support is where they're coming from. And so with this project of Basalt Commons, really what can they do to assist in financing those levers that you speak about? I think what we're really talking about is just how do we develop policy focused on, planning, zoning, so on and so forth, working with City of the Dalles, right, especially in this project. So there has been that collaboration, and I think it is something that's going to be beneficial as we move forward. If I had to maybe just pick a little bit on the county at the time, I would just say, truly, I think it's just education to the community. Really being transparent about why the county is choosing to invest in this project particularly, but also understanding too how kind of all those levers do indirectly support what we're doing. There's a lot of work as far as just, what Mid-Columbia Housing Authority is working on, what the CAP office, right, Community Action Council, they're working on a project for housing as well for veterans. So I think just being really mindful that all of the partner agencies are working together to address this issue, because it's not just the county's problem, it's the community's problem.
Okay. Yeah. So, my next question was about the levers that county commissioners have in essentially zoning, land use. You just mentioned all those to increase affordable housing. Yeah. And you just responded there a second ago about some of the other agencies who are directly involved with housing, like MCAC and the Mid-Columbia
Housing Authority.
So do you have a specific couple of levers that you think are really effective in?
So I think your question was, is there a single one?
Yeah,
I don't think there's ever a single one to anything when we're talking about community and really how it can be most beneficial and most impactful. And so truly, again, I would just go back to it's collaboration, the county's perspective, the commissioner's perspective, and if I am to sit in this role, is really making sure that I'm supporting where we go with our land use and our planning. Those are the things that a county commissioner can put their pulse on and really make a difference in. And again, really coordinating and making sure that relationships are being built, that everybody that needs to be at the table is at the table.
Right.
I think you're going to hear that from me a lot today, too.
Well, I think that's a common. I think that you got to build consensus, and that all makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I'm going to jump into wildfire resilience.
Sure.
The 2025 Rowena fire forced evacuations for thousands of residents and destroyed dozens of structures near the Dalles. We're still feeling the repercussions as people are putting their lives back together. What specific investments or policy changes would you prioritize to ensure Wasco County is better prepared for the next large wildfire, particularly in evacuation planning, fuel reduction, and infrastructure protection?
I will take a step back and just say that out of the 10 years we've been in our current house, we've been evacuated 8 of those 10 years.
My goodness.
And so I am not immune to what individuals are feeling when, hey, there's an alert that comes on Everbridge or, whatever fire channel that you're following. It's scary. And I think really, truly, we're not immune to it. I think those of us that live in county, we understand that that's definitely a risk that we take if we're moving into those areas. Rowena was devastating. And I think it's something that, we didn't necessarily anticipate the total impact of what were to occur. This isn't something we're immune to. We've experienced these types of fires year after year after year. So as far as just really looking at policy changes or, whatever we can be doing, I do think currently the county is doing a phenomenal job. They're getting state and federal agencies at the table. They're talking, they're having, just coordinated meetings about where resources come from. I think the hard thing, again, for a county commissioner in this perspective is that we're relying on outside agencies for a lot of the effort and a lot of the support. And don't get me wrong, I think the sheriff's office, huge shout out to them. Yeah. Huge shout out to Sharon with Emergency Management. That's a huge coordination effort to make sure that, infrastructure is being protected. When fire, the fire bells and the alarms are going off, who are we coordinating to get feet on the ground, boots on the ground, so to speak. I think as we move forward, though, some of those things that we really need to readdress are just, again, could we maybe have done a better job on, just protecting 84, stopping the traffic, right? Highway 30, making sure that we weren't getting, looky-loos or however you want to refer to them as, or just even citizens trying to get back into their homes, right? It's super devastating, but it's a safety security issue. Impact long-term, I think also of just making sure that we're working with state partners on developing even ODOT, right?
Yeah.
On developing better policies about controlled burns, clear, undercutting shrubs and everything else. I don't know why we moved so far away from that. I know that many, many years ago, that was something that a lot of state agencies also did, but just lack of funding. I can understand them. But I think, again, it's an opportunity to pull resources together.
Right.
The other big thing, too, that's totally outside of Wasco County's control is the fact that we can't declare a conflagration act. That's a state level decision from the governor. But what we can do is take those steps internally, working with emergency management, just again, working with ODF&W, working with just all of our partner agencies to ensure that those individuals' homes could have been protected, right? We can't always do it, but we can definitely try to mitigate it as much as possible.
Yeah. So to paraphrase back a little bit, so there's strong relationships with those outside agencies who can have a major impact on a fire situation.
Absolutely.
And I think you made a great point. Are you living in a wildfire kind of interface area? You got trees or
definitely. So we're on 2.5 acres. It's a pretty small property, but there's a lot of scrub oak, and just our neighborhood is actually, we did the Firewise program, and so went through that with the fire marshal and did a walkthrough of each of our neighborhood homes. Right? What can we do to clean up? What can we do to get our 5-foot clearance area? So I was pleasantly surprised to learn that our roof is actually one of the better rated.
Okay, great. Good. That sounds good to know.
But, on a serious note, when we look at the victims of the Rowena fire, not all of them had that luxury. They didn't have the fiscal resources to be able to do some of those things. So, again, I will say the commitment as the commissioner is to be that convener to assist in finding those resources and again, really putting the right people in connection with each other.
Very good. And that leads me into the next question. It's fire related as well. So do you have plans do you have a plan to stabilize long-term funding for rural fire districts so they have the equipment and staffing necessary to protect remote communities?
Yeah. So I think it's just a continuation of the work that's already been done.
Okay.
The county, again, has provided a lot of support to rural fire districts, whether it's through additional grant opportunities, directing them where they need to be going. Again, whether it's just helping with infrastructure, whether it's helping with vehicles, so on and so forth, right? I know Duffer just purchased a new ambulance, and so ultimately just working with the county to figure out where additional grant funding might come from, so on and so forth. Grant funding is the Band-Aid, and we know this.
Right.
And just being really cognizant of how do we go from year-to-year financial planning to being stable and sustainable. And I kind of bite my tongue a little bit because I feel like that's what we're doing at Norcor now, too. But it's a big problem, and it's not just in these rural, smaller districts. It's literally countywide, right? A lot of small communities are seeing these obstacles as we move forward, just because we didn't necessarily plan for what's to come. We plan for in the moment. And so really trying from a county perspective to make sure that these smaller districts have the resources they need.
Right.
Whether that's workforce development planning so that they can recruit just as effectively as any other organization might, whether it's ultimately, again, just trying to find long-term stable funding for them. It's that convener role. And I think that's my commitment is more so the advocacy and really just making sure that they're in touch with the right people. So a lot of state and federal partnerships again. That's just a large part of this position is connecting people to the right resources.
I'll just throw this out there. I always looked at county commissioners as kind of the folks landing the airplanes. Like there it is kind of this a place where you're directing a lot of different traffic in regards to different funding coming in, different partnerships and that kind of thing. But good.
I call it being scrappy. You got to be really resourceful, right?
Flexible, and So we'll jump into the water districts as well. So smaller districts like Pine Grove and Thule are facing aging infrastructure and regulatory complexity. What specific role, again, should the county play in helping small water districts secure funding, technical expertise, and long-term sustainability for drinking water programs?
Yeah, so I have actually a couple friends that are living in the Thule area, and I've heard the frustrations, right?
Yeah.
And I think you also have to understand that a lot of these smaller districts, they're volunteers. So truly, do they have the expertise to be running, infrastructure? Maybe, maybe not. I think a lot of them are just doing it out of the goodness of their heart. God bless them. But, truly, I think, again, that's where the county can kind of step in and help just from a larger perspective, training. Truly just making sure that there's some connection from just, hey, where do we go from an infrastructure piece?
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, it's not the responsibility of the county to take on these projects, but we also want to make sure that these, smaller water districts aren't left behind. And how do we do that? We connect them. Like I said, I'm going to sound like a broken record today, but I think these are just things we haven't planned for as a community, or we knew they were coming, but the lack of resources or revenue was just not there. How do we, I think, again, get everybody back to the table to have the larger conversation of Project A, B, C, D, E, right? I just sat at a board meeting a few months ago where, there's several, MCAD has a list of a lot of organizations that are currently asking for grant support for their failing water infrastructure. We take water for granted. It's a basic human right. And I think we're finally getting to the point where we're realizing we just didn't invest properly.
Right.
So,
yeah. And to your point about the boards, like when we go through and do our meet the candidates elections, that kind of thing, like, so the folks that are running these districts, they're just salt of the earth, people who are showing up, and a lot of times there's nobody running against them, but they realize, the need and they have the commitment to their community. So just a shout out to them.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Since we're talking about water, I'm going to jump into the data center topic. So Google's data centers have become the county's largest taxpayer and major economic force. How should Wasco County balance the economic benefits of large industrial investments, such as the $1 billion data center that just came online, with concerns about water use, infrastructure demand, and transparency and tax incentives?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like you should have it in, and every time somebody says data center, it should be like, dun, dun, dun.
Well, yeah, I mean, I believe Bernie Sanders and they're looking at trying to stop all data center new construction with the bill at this point.
Massive movement.
Massive
movement.
Wow.
So, again, I think when we talk about economic development and really just trying to move our county forward or move our community forward, it is always at the risk of, are we damaging natural resources? Are we, making sure we're doing what's best for the community as we move forward and we leverage? I like to tell people, specifically with Google, the ink is dry. And I know that's a really hard statement for a lot of people to swallow. But what I mean by that is we can't change what was negotiated and what has occurred, right? What we can do is be smart about how we're investing in the future. And I think with a lot of the funding that's currently there, the county's doing a great job in looking at just different investment opportunities. I know there's been a lot of talk around an endowment fund so that we're making sure that there's also money available for the future. But I think in the here and now, we need to look at some of those things that those funds can be used for. We have, let's see, I don't want to say the number exactly, but I know there are many, many bridges in Wasco County that need to be repaired and replaced. There's money that could go just to our public road system. I think when we're bringing in big facilities like Google, we need to make sure that they understand too that they need to be a partner for the community. They can't just be kind of this anomaly out there in existence that's utilizing a lot of our resources. Public safety, right? I think prioritizing just some of the projects internally that the county can put those funds towards to make sure that the citizens of Wasco County on a day-to-day basis, that it is impacting our lifestyles and it's impacting it for the better. There's a lot of talk right now around whether or not we're going to open Dog River, right? And I don't want to go too far down that, but I think just the the consensus from the community is that Google's going to tap into that reserve. And I don't agree with that. I'll just put that out here really frankly.
So you feel like the amount of water use is still sustainable?
Yeah.
And okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yes and no, right? We have to look forward to the future. And I think we jump back to the water district issues, right? And our infrastructure issues. We need to be cognizant about what we're doing, but we also need to protect our natural resources. So, yeah.
Yeah, very good.
Thank you.
Very good. I think you dipped your toe in it just a second ago, but my next question was about Wasco County faces the challenges of diversifying beyond a few large employers. And do you have any specific industries or economic sectors the county should actively be recruiting or invest in over the next decade to strengthen long-term economic, resilience?
Sure.
That idea of having a bunch of different eggs in the basket, right? So,
yeah. So I think it's indirect, right? It's not like the county's going to go out and be like, "Hey, you come into the Dalles," right? I think those are a lot of closed door conversations that occur at times when we're really trying to work with our local partner agencies about what does economic development look like for our community. I would say right now we're doing a fantastic job working with Mid-Columbia Economic Development District. Are there barriers potentially that are still in existence for individuals to come into this community? Sure. Good, bad, or indifferent, they're there for a reason, but some of those we may need to be paying a little bit more attention to as we're looking at bringing in, additional revenue streams, additional support, community development, so on and so forth. One thing I would say, and I've had such great conversations with so many community members recently, but I think really starting to invest in agriculture. We have a huge agriculture, right? Cherries. Yeah. We have, again, Hood River more so, but just apples, pears, you name it. Grapes, right? We have a lot of vineyards in the area. They're getting hit hard.
Yeah.
State and federal cuts, right? It's been a rough couple decades for them. So I think what can we do, again, from a county perspective, indirectly to help support, whether that's through workforce development, which at one time, and maybe you know this, Tom.
Yeah, maybe.
There was the workforce development initiative the port was working on, and it was to take interns and ultimately kind of bring them into industries where maybe there's not as much interest. It's kind of a dying art, so on and so forth. Yeah. I don't know if that program's still in existence, but I think it would be lovely to reincarnate.
Yeah, I don't believe so, but I remember Kathy Ersprung was directing that program, and I did cover it for a couple of years. I can't remember when exactly. Yeah, but that was a few years back for sure.
But those are things again, right? We have individuals that are scared to come and work here. We have healthcare that there is just not enough damn nurses. And I'm going to be really explicit about that because I employ several phenomenal nurses. Shout out to our nurses. And truly, what do we need to do to make sure that we're making ourselves attractive, that if people are going to relocate here, that we have the resources needed? This will go to another question later on. But, what are we doing in our smaller community to make sure that, people are coming, but they're staying?
Right.
And so, again, I think just looking at some of the agricultural pieces, again, public works, public safety, those are always going to be things that we need to continually invest in because they are the core services of the county.
Right.
So,
okay. Very good. So just kind of finish out this that part of the question. So Google payments are coming in now. The latest data center, I believe, brought in $9.8 million in fees and taxes. Property taxes, that is. And one part of that is the GAP funding, which is this year it was $5.75 million split between the county and the city. Yeah. And so there's this nice little, windfall for the county, a little nice. And how should that money, millions Google payments to the county, which can be used for anything, be spent? Like, do you have any specific ideas? I know you mentioned endowment a minute ago, but are there specific projects or anything out there that you think would be a good investment for the county and pay off for residents later on?
Absolutely. So I think, again, yes, endowment. I think we need to be investing a larger chunk of change for, quote unquote, the rainy day. I think we always need to be smart about that. Yeah. But I also will say that with a grain of salt in that the county is extremely flush right now. And I think that some of that money needs to be reinvested into our community. So to answer your question, I do think that we we can definitely put it back into our roads. Roads are not coming out of the county's budget. It's a state funded, right? So a lot of people I don't think realize it's not general fund from the county. It's directly from the state. And so those endowment funds, that tax base that we have from Google, needs to go back to making sure we have drivable roads. Public safety for sure is another big one. Focusing on those core services that really the county is responsible for investing in, and making sure obviously that, again, there's minimal impact to the daily lives of the citizens in this county. We'll get into the other piece of this too. Okay. I don't want to jump the gun too much, but I think there needs to be some sort of a process to help our schools. And I will go back to just saying that truly it's not a core service and it's not a responsibility of the county. However, we need to be a good community partner. And I think right now our school is struggling. And are there things that we can do to help invest in that? Absolutely. It's not going to be direct. It's a different funding stream, but it can definitely be indirect just through, again, project-based initiatives.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
So when you think endowment versus current investments with that money, do you have a percentage in mind at all, or is it that clear to you, or?
No, because I think here's what's going to happen, and I've seen this in the past, right? The county gets a little bit of money, and they go, we're going to open it up to the community, bring us your projects.
Right.
And I've seen wonderful individuals in this community have such a heart and soul and passion for the work that we do to better our daily lives come forward and we only need $5,000,
yeah.
Which is great, right? They take that $5,000 and they make wonderful thing happen. And we have others that come forward and they're like, well, we need $150,000, and we never hear from them again if the money is granted. So that's other issues, I think, just with follow through on after action. But ultimately, I don't necessarily have a percentage or a number, but those funds should go back to the betterment of the community. And what percent should we invest in endowment for the rainy day? I don't know. I don't want to pigeonhole it, but I think just prioritizing, are there certain things the community really needs to invest in? Water infrastructure, wildfire preparation, whatever it may be. Those are definitely hot topics right now.
Yeah. Very good. Well, I think this is a good segue because we kind of got into that discussion about schools a second ago. And so do we need a new high school in the Dalles? And, I mean, that was on it was a bond a couple of years ago that it failed by 300 and some odd votes. But is it... how does the county get behind something like that? Because maybe you were referring to that too a few minutes ago in regards to barriers to getting people to come to the Dalles or look at the Dalles as a spot to build a business or that kind of thing. Yeah.
So resoundingly, yes, we need a new school.
Okay. Yeah.
And I say that as a mom of two kids that are in elementary school right now, and I just have so much love and passion and support for what our teachers and principals and administration is doing, but it's a struggle. Yeah. And, I've heard so many stories. Just the other day, somebody told me that there was a story about one of the high school teachers had a leak in the roof of the high school. They put a large funnel with a tube that went out the window because the bucket kept filling up. Those are stories our community needs to hear.
Yeah.
And when we talk about, why the bond didn't pass, I don't know that we necessarily did a good job as a community to really support and educate taxpayers on this is how bad it really is.
Yeah.
We're putting duct tape repeatedly over something it's just not going to hold anymore. I will also just say, I think from just the community perspective of attracting and retaining people to this community, schools are going to be a big draw. When our, medical system, when we're trying to find doctors for our community that seem to ebb and flow and, keep leaving, and then we recruit a whole bunch and then they don't stay for very long. Schools are a contributing factor to that. And really, truly, I think we lose a lot of younger families to some of those things because they want their kids to be invested and they want what's best for their children and the future outcomes. So, yeah, I mean, mean, I honestly tell them I could go all day on this topic.
It's an important topic.
It is an important topic. And I think also the county did a fantastic job during the last bond initiative of supporting the school district. Huge shout out to, the assessment and tax office for sitting in those community meetings and making sure that the data was available so that citizens and taxpayers really understood what that impact was going to be their property taxes. I had a wonderful conversation with Joaquin at the bookstore the other day, and he had a great idea. And I don't know if this is feasible. I'm a little hesitant to throw it out there, but we have a large portion of our population here that is they're retirees.
Yes.
They're on fixed incomes. I hear this from several members of the community coalition at Norcor, right? Yes. While they support it, they may not necessarily vote for it because that's a big impact to their monthly allowances.
Correct.
What happens if, property taxes go up by $400? That's $400 either I have to pull from my prescriptions, that's $400 I'm pulling from something else, right? They simply can't afford it. Joaquin had a phenomenal idea, and probably going to get a lot of backlash for that.
Well, maybe.
He said that there was a similar bond initiative where his parents live. I think they're in Northern California. And he mentioned that they actually can opt in or out to certain taxing initiatives that come across on the ballot. And so I don't know if that's something the school district necessarily or we can even look at. I have no clue. But those are things I think we just need to be creative about and really, again, making sure that, our citizens are educated on what this impact may look like. But again, I think the county has been a great community partner in that regard. So it's just a lot. It's a lot that we're facing right now. And I think we just need to be, like I said, more strategic about what that looks like as we move forward.
So as a county commissioner, then, like you said, you appreciated the tax assessor's ability to answer questions and that kind of thing last bond election. What as a county commissioner can you do to help? I don't know, provide that information that's so important to voters when they're agreeing to pay more money, right? Like, absolutely. It's one of the most difficult things to do is pass a bond. So, I think, again, it's just getting the information out there, pushing it out as much as you possibly can, using outlets like you, right? I mean, we need to make sure that those things are coming up in conversations. The county recently created the PIO position with Stephanie Krell. What are we pushing out through there? I think we need to be a bit more methodical about what the messaging is that's going out on a daily basis. And again, really those issues that are impacting us on a daily basis that are really concerning to people's daily lives. They're doing a great job. Don't get me wrong, but there's always those gaps that we need to look at and what can we do a little bit better? Yeah. And I kind of want to look back at it on that particular bond measure. If there would have been, or I don't know, there's always a would have been, but I think the county could really help. Possibly by looking at, what is the overall bond, then, can some of these Google dollars be used to, offset those costs? We know the school district's now getting $750,000 per year for the new data center, which that's going to double because the second one's going to come on. So they're going to have these revenue streams that might really help to reduce the cost of that bond and get to that, thing that you're making it affordable for everybody. I don't know if you can do a carve out for folks who are on a fixed income, but maybe that's worth exploring.
Can we do that and still afford to build a new school? Right. I mean, again, I think it's just being creative in what we're looking at so that it's not a question of it's going to fail again. It's the question of this is definitely going to succeed because we've done it. We've looked at every corner that we possibly can. I mean, I think going back to my earlier comment about where do we carve out funding, it's another project I think that the county can invest in. I think it's a project potentially revenue-wise that a lot of the community would support because it lessens their tax burden.
Right. Yeah. Oh, fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Nichole. I appreciate your time today and answering the questions. And thanks for coming in. And best of luck on the campaign trail.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for the time today.
You got it.
All right.